Behold the wall of clamps. We're gonna start building our new Bessie clamp station because the last one wouldn't come off the wall. And we're gonna make our side panels first, then we'll get our back panel, reusing and repurposing as much kind of scrap ply and other laminate materials that I have around. The shadow line is huge on these. This is an aftermarket shadow line. And so it's just an LED kit that I put and installed in this upper chamber. It was kind of a pain in the butt, frankly. But that shadow line really is huge and it's deadly accurate, right on. I always do like to have the outside of the shadow line just past my actual center mark on my cut so that I can really know that I am at the measurement I want. And here we go. After cutting all the boards to length on the chop saw, we're going to rip everything to 12 inches. That's going to be the depth of the shelving unit to hold those parallel clamps out from the wall. Now here we've got a little stop block set up so that we can start cutting all of our supports at the top of our brackets that'll hold the head of the parallel clamp. And the stop block just makes things super easy in the ability to just make repeatable cuts. And it's super simple. We've just got a block of 2x and a little quick clamp. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I could saw a little faster, I guess, but I like clean cuts. So we're going to take our time, do it right. Dado stack setup. We're going to remove our standard ripping blade here, or combo blade. And we're going to end up basically cutting dados all the way down each one of these toppers. Those toppers are going to be going in the clamp rack for our Bessies. Relative to getting the exact thickness of this Baltic birch ply, we do have the option with our dado stacks of inserting little thin shims that come with it. Sometimes they have thicker washers as well, but we start always with our outer and our outer blades on the inside and our outer blade on the outside. And so those are just the main outside pieces. And then these, for this particular brand, this is what the inside pieces look like. And the key is when you're setting these up, that you don't allow the carbide teeth to hit each other, right? Because that's going to create a potential depth gap. You also want to make sure they're facing the right way, but you always want to have your blades offset. Now, in general, plywood, as you buy it at the store, measures at what everybody knows, 3/4, right? Well, the reality is that's just not the case. It's just shy. So it's usually in the 22, 30 seconds range, something of that nature. Here is our stack and what we're going to be dealing with. 1/8 inch on the outside, so that's 1/4 inch. Another 1/8 inch chipper and another 1/8 inch chipper, that's another 1/4 inch. That means we're at a half. There's a third 1/8 inch in there. Now we're at 5/8. And then I've put in a 3/32. That will hopefully get us right there. So we've got a super nice tight dado. And then remember when you start putting in your chippers that you do not want these teeth to hit each other. You want to make sure that those teeth are all opposite, like right there how they're hitting. That's bad. That hitting right there is going to allow a gap to occur. So you want to offset like so. And before we actually cut our test, we're going to adjust our depth. And again, this isn't fine furniture, so I'm just going to eyeball it. Pretty good. That's pretty snug, nice and tight. So again, standard 3/4 inch Baltic birch is not actually 3/4. Standard 3/4 inch Baltic birch, as you buy it, is like 22, 30 seconds. You can even see there's still a little wiggle. But that's why we put in that 3/32. And then if I were to glue these, which I may or may not, based on the fact that it's just a plywood rack, that would leave room for glue. That there's just a hair bit of wiggle in there. We got all of our top plates to hold our Bessie clamps cut and dadoed and ready to go. Now we're going to work on ripping down some of our support brackets out of the sheet. And because they're cut at angles, the hope is we'll be able to reuse and repurpose as much of this as possible with minimal waste. Hot, fast, cheap, and easy way to get a 45 on any board. In this case, we're ripping this 12 by 12 piece of plywood right in half. We're just using our speed square. You just put it right up against the fence. In this case, of course, on my crosscut sled. It's the best way to do it. Love crosscut sleds. And you're going to make sure that that's all nestled in nice and tight before you make your cuts. Able to cheat a little bit on this because I'm just ripping this board right down in half, but I'm just going to line the kerf line all the way down, make sure it lines up. Everything looks solid. And again, this far end will line up just fine with the blade because of the way I've got my speed square and everything else set up down here. But this is just, again, a hot, fast, cheap, and easy way to get a miter on any board using a crosscut sled and a speed square. Straightforward. Support bracket, arm. That's a nice snug fit. Look at that. Awesome. Beautiful. Okay. So there's our support arm for our Bessie clamps. As the fleet makes its way through the treacherous waters of the canal, they find themselves in a dead heat, with one making the lead. It looks like it's going to be. Yes, it is. He finishes first. No, all right. These are all of our brackets, upside down, of course, for our Bessie clamp station. A little glue in there, put a couple little brad nails in there. The weight is going to be coming from this side downward because they're all upside down. So not worried too much about these being uber secure with crazy screws and shit like that. Once we get it all set up in its actual case, it's going to be stout as hell. All right, here's a rough idea of what we're going with for our Bessie clamp storage. We're going to build a little 1 1/4 inch spacer to go in between each of these because that's what we need for all of the clamps to actually go in real nice. A little bit of gap for room, little breathing room. The clamps come up about 2 inches here, but again, left about an inch, inch and a half up this way for the sake of just lifting up and in and out, things like that. You build stuff too tight sometimes for the wood shop and you just realize that it's not ergonomically sound. So the tops of the clamps will all go in there. You can see how the long sides here, short side rests here. That 1 1/4 inch is for the bar, and they'll just slide right down in there. And then I left this extra. I built it a little bit taller over this time. Built it a little bit taller so that I could have a spot to hang clamps, C-clamps, whatever. I've got another shelf on top as well. This will prevent stuff from falling off the shelf to the sides, as is pretty common. Things like to slide and get moved around. But this is not fastened and put together, just to show you guys kind of an idea of our Bessie clamp storage that we had to rebuild. One of the dilemmas of not having the shop completely set up is that my table saw is also my workbench. Even though I have all this other space, maybe I should be establishing an actual workbench. But it's tough because we're not fully set up. That's probably the best option I have over there. We can see all the crap on it. So I keep having to move stuff off because now I need to make a cut. I need to rip this board to 2.5 from. All right, we've got the whole unit flipped upside down with a 2.5-inch spacer on the front and the back of each ledger that's going to hold the clamp. So this whole thing again is now upside down, and you have to imagine that these are going to be our shelf brackets here, and that's going to be the space for the top head of the Bessie to go in. But this system down here at the end is how we're going to work our way all the way down the line, and we're going to get all these bad boys installed. All right, here she be, screwed, glued, and tattooed. Yeah, like I said, it ain't winning any beauty pageants, but you can see how the clamps are going to hang in there. We've got a shelfer up top. I'm going to knock these corners off just so I don't clip them with my shoulders. This is pretty common for me. A little sand on some of these splinters. I'm not even going to wax this thing. It's just that's the hole we're going to go into with our new Bessie clamp rack that we built today. As much as I'd love to ram set that thing in there and think it'll be good, it is holding a lot of weight. So we're probably going to use some PL400 and ram set into the block just to get it in position. And then after that, we're going to bore some anchors in there and put some anchors in as well. That's just going to make everything a lot more stout. Finito. That thing was an absolute bear to mount. Not fun at all. I am beat. Those ram sets, you can see how far they did not go in at all. So we've had that liquid nails on the back. Thankfully that held it in place long enough with just enough of that nail in for us to get all these other actual concrete anchored and lags in and solid. That one stripped out, but no big deal because this thing will hold more than enough weight and more than enough clamps. And well, that's about dead nuts level, folks. Behold the wall of clamps. Still more to come, but the wall is taking shape. Beholden to me, the almighty clamps.